The following is a production of the Dallas Genealogical Society. For more information, please visit our website at www.dallasgenealogy.org.
What am I doing? Good. Oh. Yes, there was an action for me.
All right, our speaker today is going to be Betsey Mills. Betsy's been a genealogist since the age of 10 when she found a family tree in her baby book that hadn't been filled out. She started pestering people for information to fill out that tree and has not stopped since. She's been a part of the Texas Gen Web project and state coordinator for the AR Gen Web since 1996. She's also a member of the Magna Carta Dames, former regent in the NSDAR, and past member of the United Daughters of the Confederacy and the Daughters of the Republic of Texas. She's currently the president of the Lamar County Genealogical Society, treasurer for the Texas State Genealogical Society, and member of the Lamar County Historical Commission, heading up the Cemeteries Committee. Betsy maintains the Lamar County Death and Cemetery Records online database that currently contains over 130,000 records. Several years ago, she received a large envelope full of unidentified photographs of her father's family. The quest to identify those photographs has evolved into sharing tips and techniques to help others learn to identify and share their own photos, which is what she'll be talking to us about today. So if you all help me welcome Betsy.
Just going to change the slides here. It should come up in just
I can see it, but I can't.
Does that light have to shine toward us? It's on the table.
One second. Pardon me?
Reflected off that.
On the table that's shining into our.
Oh, that thing, my toy.
Oh.
That's on, yeah, sort of say covered over. One of my toys. Good morning. How many of us here have a shoebox full of pictures that have not been identified? Yeah, well, I have a boot box. Is that it? Is there anybody here that everything is identified and? Okay, good, because I usually tell them they have to leave. They don't need to be here. We're going to talk today. Get used to not having to look back at the screen. We're going to learn about finding old photographs, the types of photographs, dating photographs, identifying the people in the photographs, and then preserving and sharing them. Because you don't want to have the photographs and you know how the people sometimes go, this is mine. You can't take that, but then they put it on the internet. Have you ever seen that? And then get mad because somebody downloaded their photograph. Why did you put it out there? Finding old photographs. Not hard to do. You got a grandma that's got pictures. You've got a shoebox full of your own, or I inherited my mother's shoebox, so I have 2 shoeboxes. An album. I got one mailed to me and told me, here, can you identify these people? Yeah. An old trunk. People sometimes have photographs, they find them in trunks. They find them at flea markets. You find them on eBay. I have a thing that searches for me and gives me anything that comes up for Lamar County on eBay. And this is one of the photographs that, this is one of the photographs that I got off of eBay. And the owner, I bought it because S. Lynn is one of the known photographers there in Lamar County. And this little girl was Emma Scales. And so I did a little research on her. But this was a neat photograph that I did find on eBay and was affordable.
Did you identify her or was it all?
It was on the back. That was one that we were lucky. Her name was written on the back. That's all we knew. But I had done scales research for someone else. And so that was another interest to me, was to see if I could tie her into that family. Most of us just have a shoebox, and they're full of photographs that you don't know where they came from. The first thing you need to know when you're analyzing a photograph is the type of photographs. Now, there are more types than what I'm going to go through. There's some of these are the most common, and I'll go through them quickly because it can get boring, and you can find these listings when you're identifying them online. And you don't have to take notes. I didn't tell you that, but there is a URL I'll give you at the end, and all this stuff is on there, and you can go there and see the things we've used. Now, if you want to take some notes, that's good too. The magic lantern. Have anybody ever seen a magic lantern? I'm trying to get one on eBay, but so far they keep going out of my price range. They're not cheap. A magic lantern, I only mention it because they're kind of neat. They're an image painted on glass, and they projected them onto a sheet on the wall or whatever, and they were from 1790 to 1940, imagine. And that's what one looked like. Isn't it neat? And so I think they're really neat, and I'd like to have one to bring to display, but like I said, so far Santa Claus has not brought me one. That's a little group of them. The daguerreotype is identifiable because if you turn it at an angle and look at it, you'll see that like the negative looking image. It is a metal photograph, mirror surface, and it has a positive negative nature, which means you can turn it and see the difference. That's how you identify it. It's usually in a case, and from 1839 to 1860. So a very small window. So if you find a daguerreotype, you know that that's a very small area of dates to look at. An ambrotype, and they all look similar. They're kind of hard to tell. And one you'll see later is a tintype, but it looks like these others. The ambrotype was from 1854 to 1863, and it's mounted on the back of glass. And another glass then is sandwiched onto it. And you don't ever want to take any of those don't try to pry them apart because it will ruin the photograph. And they'll have milky gray highlights, and sometimes the back is a ruby glass. And it's, again, usually in a case. A tintype can also come in a case. This is a tintype. And you notice it looks a lot like the others. But it is, a magnet will stick to a tintype. And it was used from 1856 to 1915. This tintype is one that was in a group of pictures you're going to hear about in a little bit. And it was separate. It was not. It was wrapped in tissue paper and inside a Bible. The carte de visite is kind of like our business card. If you went visiting somebody, you left it in their little bowl, they had a bowl by the door, and you left your card in there, and it had a picture on it. And can have, like this one had the photographer stamps on the back. But they left these and it's a little bit larger than a business card. And I believe there's one up here in my group of pictures that's buried. I didn't pull it out. But I'll spread these out later and you can come and see them. But a carte de visite is slightly larger than a business card. The most common that you're going to find are cabinet cards. They're mounted on cardboard. They were from 1875 to 1910. Notice I don't have all these dates memorized, by the way. And they're very common. And so those are fairly easy to identify. This one, got it out of my finger. This one has a really neat border around it, kind of a cut edge, like you've seen some of the scrapbooking cutters. But this was done way back, and it's the reason I have that picture is because it was neat. People give me things, I find them at flea markets. You never know. Then there is a stereograph, which is two pictures on one, and you looked at it through a stereograph, which looked like that. How many of your grandparents had one of those? Yeah, my grandmother had one, and unfortunately, they had a house fire, and it got lost in the house fire. But I have some of these stereograph cards that were put in there. The one you might be more familiar with is that one. As kids, we looked at that one, and that is the same thing. It had two images, and then superimpose them together, and then you could, it looked 3D. And then this thing that was messing with the lights. This is one you could use with your cell phone and take 3D photographs. Again, this is a novelty. I just bought it because I was like, oh really? You can still do 3D photographs. How fun. I'm going to have to give it to Chris and get him. He's here with me today from our Genealogical Society, and he's kind of our new guy in town, but he's a technology guy, and so we're thoroughly enjoying having Chris around. I'll let Chris play with that and see if he can make us a 3D photograph. Another common one that you're going to see is a postcard. They were from 1870 and of course till present. You know, when you send out your Christmas pictures, and sometimes they're on a little postcard. So they have an address place and a stamp. You can be divided, and they began about the divided back appeared in 1902. All of those little facts will help you if you're trying to figure out what date you identify what type it is, and then that helps also. There are some websites out there. This Leggett is one of the really good ones. And it's, again, on that resource list, just a clickable link on that resource list. And so he's got so much and nearly all of the types of photographs. I see somebody going to take a picture, so I was going to wait. So when you have a photograph, then you want to date and identify the people. This is the picture that got me started. This was when my mother-in-law kept a poster board. She cut poster board in half and made it into a scrapbook. Covered it in the old contact paper. I mean, talking really primitive scrapbook. But she pasted into that obituaries, pictures, and all kinds of stuff in that scrapbook. And when she died, about 2 weeks after she died, my sister-in-law called me and said, okay, I've cut up my scrapbook, and she said, I've got your pictures laid out, come get them. My heart stops. I still get cold chills. I was like, you did what? She said, I've got your family's pictures laid out here. And she said, then I've got some that I don't know who they are, and they're over it. And I'm like, I'll be right there. So I walk in, sure enough, here's piles of cut up poster board. Where she had taken them, she'd pried some loose. This one was one of the pried loose ones. And of course, my mother-in-law glued them in with Elmer's glue. Now you see the problems, don't you? And that was in the pile of, I don't know who they are, they're going in the trash. And I was like, please don't throw those away. Please let me have them. She said, okay. I said, where's the rest of the scrapbook? She said, in that black garbage bag over there. I said, just tell me you didn't throw the coffee grounds on them, and I'm taking that bag home. And I went out of there with the sack, just like that, to take it home. What was left that she had not cut up. I have a tote bag right now with the pieces in it, so preserved. But this picture was in there. I knew, because I knew Miss Mills, that this was her family, our part of the family, maybe whatever. So I started analyzing down. There's 3 little boys. All right, we're going to see if I can figure out the pointer. No?
Should the button on the top.
That's where I was. There it is. I'm just not getting in the right place. There's 3 little boys here. Well, so first thing is I could look and see what family had 3 little boys that started with 3 little boys. Well, pretty good. I found only really one on that side of the family, and that was the Porter family. Of course, you don't know what the other one is. That baby could be anything because it's in one of the dresses. Which, do y'all know why they put them in dresses? Those long dresses? Even at that age, he's still in a dress because when they crawled, it kept them from crawling into the fire because it slowed them down. A little bit of trivia you can go home and share. So, and this family, the Porter family, had 10 boys. So, okay, good. I think this is the Porter family. And so I go to a homecoming over around Charleston, Texas, in Delta, outside of Cooper, and start showing it around at people, looking for older people. So, it was really bad. It means if I came to you, you probably looked old. Do you know who this is? Have you ever seen anybody in this picture? Do you know who it is? And they were all like, nah, don't recognize anybody. And they finally told me, go over there and talk to Tukey Peters. Okay. They said, he knows everybody. So I went over to him, and I handed him the picture, and I said, and this is what you have to do, people, when you have one. Do you know anybody in this picture look familiar? He looked at it, and he said, no, honey, I just don't know. I don't recognize anybody. And I said, okay, well, thank you for looking. And I started walking away, and he said, come back here. Come back here. So I went back, and he looked at it again. He said, you know that little boy down in the front? He said, if I didn't know better, I'd say that was Dick Porter. I said, close enough. Dick Porter is not born yet, but these are his 4 older brothers.
Nice.
I said, yes, you've just confirmed this is the Samuel Wood Porter. And of course that makes it very easy to date this picture because, and I did compare, this is a picture of Samuel Wood Porter later in life. I blew it up. You take these and you scan them and you blow them up and you cut them up and you do whatever. And you can begin to see the similarities in them, the cleft chin. His eyes are squinted, but they're still very similar. The nose looks like an aging nose. So that is the same man later on. And so, great. We now have that this is Samuel Wood. And again, pretty easy because we go from the age of this baby, which is roughly 6 to 9 months, and the birth of Dick Porter, and that gives you a range for the date, which would be between July of 1891 and November of 1893. So, if you've got one that you don't know a thing about and you get that close down being able to date it, that's a win. Okay? But, whoops, I'm going to back up one. One of the things you also will want to do, if you're not as lucky as I was and be able to find a Tukey Peters, is that, or have a baby in there. Notice the sleeves on the lady's dress. Notice her hairstyle. Notice the chopped off tie. I will tell you, I have never seen, I cannot find another photo of a chopped off tie. And I've had other people that know photographs looking at it going, ooh, isn't that neat? But we can't find that style. You use the books that are down here that have dated photos in to compare your hairstyles and other items of clothing and things like that. Another thing in this one, off to the right, and they've moved the camera, so it's important, is that man's holding something in his hand. That was another fun thing to do. We tried to blow it up. We looked at it. What is that, and why is it so important to him that they took a picture of that picture in their family? I have another one that the whole family's in a photograph, and on a chair down front is a framed photo of the husband of the family who has died. So he was important and they included him. So what is this picture? Well, we tried everything, everybody in the world looking at it, and my son comes through one day, cocky, about 13, 14 years old, and from across the room he goes, well, I don't know what y'all are worried about. He said, it's a house. It's a what? It's a house. So we, sure enough, when you know it's a house, you can see that it's a house. Well, I talked at Hopkins County a few months ago, and they have a macular degeneration magnifier there, and it will take and magnify a piece of your little picture up to this size. huge. Chris took this and put it under that magnifier and blew it up, and let me tell you folks, there's people standing on that porch. Now the only thing they didn't have was a place to put your thumb drive in and save the scan, which I would have loved to have had. I think we've got a picture of it that we took with a cell phone. But unreal, but there are people standing on there, and you can tell if they're men or women. So we still don't know why. We don't know who, but at least we know what it is. So dating and identifying photos is a process.
Who were the two male adults?
I didn't mention that. We still are not positive who the older one is. They look enough alike, it has to be one of his older brothers. Somebody keeps telling me Uncle Ott, but Uncle Ott must be a nickname because none of those 10 men were named Ott. So we're still working on it. So that's what I'm telling you. Dating and identifying your photo is a process. You can't go in and go, I'm going to date this photograph today. Not going to happen. Could take you years. And again, I still would like to know who the older brother is. But there's obviously a relationship. He had his hand on his shoulder, etc. You will use books like these that say, this was through Family Chronicle, and sometimes they're out of print, sometimes you can find them, sometimes they're on CD. I have copies of them down here. You're welcome to take pictures of them, or somebody came up and was taking pictures instead of writing them down. And then again, I also have them on that website. So those are really handy books that they created that have dated photographs in them you can use for comparison. And the comparison of, like I said, the sleeves, the hairstyles, the chopped off tie that nobody knows where they got it. Maybe he went to that restaurant where they cut the tie. Was the only tie he had, so he had to wear it. The next picture that came into my hands that was unidentified, I had been tracking. My great-great-grandfather had 18 children. And my goal in life was to find all those 18 children and pictures of them. So someone told me, there's a lady named Jetty House. She lives in San Antonio, and she comes from the oldest brother, son of Benjamin House. And she'll love talking to her. So I called her up and we visited, and she said, I've got lots of pictures. She said, but honey, she said, I'm sick and I'm going to die, so I gave those to my son. And she said, but I'll tell him to call you and to give you those pictures. And I said, I just need copies of them or whatever. I'd love to have them. So it rocked on, and a year later I tried to call her back because I had never heard anything, and she had died. I found out she had passed away. So I thought, no, and I didn't get the son's name, contact, anything. So that was a lost thing, and silly me for not asking, hello, what's your son and what's his name, phone number? Things you wish you had done. But after about 6 months later then, my phone rang one day, and he said, I'm Jetty House's son, and she told me to mail you these photographs. And she said, I'm going to do that. Give me your address. I said, you're going to mail them to me? Do you want copies and I'll pay? No, I'm going to mail them to you. Okay. So I gave him my address, very happily gave him my address. And when I got them, the things that dropped out, and he told me, he said, one of them in there, he said, he's really old looking, and he said, I think it's my grandfather and all of his kids. Okay. So it fell out. This, of course, caught my eye first. This was a little framed picture. Looks really good blown up. Let me tell you, it's about this size. It's the little tiny thing, and it is a framed tintype. So I kept looking at it, and I thought, his grandfather is Henry House, and he has 4 children. There's a lot more children in here. So I kept looking at it and trying to figure out, how am I going to decide who this is? So also in that package was the tintype I showed you earlier. Yeah, that was a strange thing. And it had been wrapped in tissue paper in his mother's Bible and said Uncle John on the tissue paper. And the tissue paper came with it, by the way. I can't believe he mailed these to me. I would have mailed them to anybody. I don't care how much I loved you. Uncle John. But it finally dawned on me, looking at all of them, wait a minute. That's the same Uncle John in that picture. Wearing the same clothes, probably taken the same day. And Uncle John was not a framed tintype, by the way. He was just a plain tintype. But it dawned on me that had to be Uncle John in that other picture. And if so, that's Benjamin House and a bunch of his children. One family is married. You can tell because he's got his arm draped on the woman's shoulder, just like me and do. He's down. Whoops, what did I do? I pushed the wrong button. There it is. Sorry, Tom.
Oh, you fixed it. That's great.
This is not like the clicker we use. Down here, he's got a baby and a little boy and his wife, because see, with his arm propped on her. Notice the fun things in it, that the dog's tail is fanned. You know, when they said they had to hold their pose and not smile. These are some of the reasons. The baby has two heads, two faces, because it also was not still. And the little girl down here with her toes underneath the dog, she's got like 6 toes because she was excited, and you know how little girls sit there and do with their toes. So some of the fun things in that picture is the movement that the photographer had to deal with. But this is then my great-great-grandfather, right? I keep finding the wrong one. Right here. These and bifocals don't work. That's my great-great-grandfather. His wife, Nancy, who died not long after this, apparently, because she's not on the 1870 census. Then I set about trying to determine what year it was. One of the things that you will see in my stuff, and there's this spreadsheet is on that resource page. Yeah, I'm a little bit, I like color coordinating, etc. But this was where I laid out that family and how many people would have been there that year to be in a picture. So it narrowed it down. There were 18 people in the photograph, and it narrowed it down to 18, I can't read this. I can't read it on this one for sure. 1863, 67, 68. And so then I looked at who would have been in the picture, and it fit more to be 1868. So we have a date for the picture about 1868. Well, I was all excited how neat it was to have this picture. And you know how it is when you have something to share, somebody always has to one-up you. And so I took it to a family reunion, and I passed out copies of it, which, again, we'll talk about more. And somebody said, well, don't you have that one of Benjamin? Excuse me? What picture of Benjamin? This picture of Benjamin. Well, isn't that neat? Oh, I'll get you a copy if you want one. So, you know, if you have pictures, they sometimes get you pictures. That's the other thing. In that same package, this picture fell out. Well, now, immediately, folks, that's my grandparents. I don't need anybody identifying anything. I know that picture. That's my mama and my papa. And they're holding a baby. And on the back of this picture is written, in my grandmother's handwriting, because I knew that too, she said, this is not very good of us. It was taken in 1952. That is our youngest grandchild, our youngest son's daughter, Joe and Tenny House. Her youngest son. That's my daddy. Their daughter, that's me in that picture, people. To get from a stranger a package of pictures with your picture in there as a baby, it again gives me goosebumps. But I show this one not just for the fun thing on it, But that, I don't know how that baby looks to y'all, but I would say 6 months. Do we all have a vote on that? If so, that picture was taken in 1951, not 52. So don't even believe the date if your grandmother wrote it, because that picture would have been in 1951. I was born in March. And we have analyzed looks like a very dead, dry garden behind them. I'd like to have that macular degeneration magnifier to look at what that is growing behind them. So it looks like they're standing in front of a dead garden. Another picture that came along, my great-great-grandfather was taken in by another family. You know, they never adopted them, they just took them in. And we had major problems determining who it was, who took them in, and we finally did identify that. And then someone shared with us this picture that on the back of it said, 2 children, Grandma Seal raised. And then we knew who that was. That is my great-great-grandfather, who took the Seal name like his family that took him in. His sister said they were mean, and she wouldn't take that name. She kept the original name of Bowley. So thanks to her, we don't have to go through what the real name was. But dating this picture has been a challenge. And as I told you, it's a process. Isaac Presley Seal was born in August of 1874, and his sister Harriet, born 6 of May, 1876. What age? What ages do you think those children? Because there's 3.5 years between them. They don't look that way. Anybody got a guess?
8 to 12.
You think they're 8 and 12? I think possibly. Where is it? What age is it that the girls get a growth spurt and they kind of outgrow the boys? I don't know. It has been quite a controversy. I haven't looked at the fact that the penny whistle that he's holding, the tin whistle, was popular between 1840 and 1882. And from what I understand, the only way he ever touched a toy was probably in this photographer's prop, because they didn't have toys. And the little girl's holding a porcelain doll. They were taken in by a family who, his children had died, all but one of them. And apparently he needed a field hand and he needed a playmate for his daughter. So he took the 2 children. Now, Mama had died, but I found out later, I always thought the parents had died. Daddy didn't die. He went over to Kentucky. He gave those 2 away, took the rest of the kids and went to Kentucky and died there. Somebody told me they'd found the Kentucky death certificate, and I said, no, not possible. Yeah, it was. I always go prove somebody wrong and find out usually that, hey, look what I've got, proof. But I also analyzed that the person that took the picture was the Charles Dome studio, and he was in Prescott. He had a little office in Prescott, Nevada County, Arkansas, from 92 to 93, 98, 99, 900. Those are business, they came out of business directories. Someone has researched it. There's a book up here called Catching Shadows, and that is the Texas section out of that book. The main book is really thick for the whole United States, and I would love to have it, but I don't. We have got, somebody has, 1882, so this picture was anywhere from 1882 to 92. But going on the ages of those children, because they are so hard to tell, that one is still a mystery. Again, still the process of working on it. So, are y'all ready to go home and look at your pictures now with some new eyes and see? Okay, we're going to talk about preserving and sharing your photographs. Things to remember when you're going to preserve your photographs. Don't do it with your cup of coffee or your Coke sitting there, because if you spill it, they're ruined. Keep them away from sunlight or heat. Fingerprints. This one I have in a cover. I should have these others in a cover, because your photographs will have acid on them and they will deteriorate the photograph. So be sure, though, that your little envelope is archival quality, acid-free. but keep the photographs off your pictures. And like I said, I'm really bad because I have several up here you can look at, and unfortunately don't have them in plastic. Don't store them in cardboard boxes or with newspaper between them. That newspaper is so full of acid it will ruin those photographs. If you use a box, make sure it's archival quality. Shoe boxes, they really are such a thing. Don't write on them with ballpoint ink. Use a soft-leaded pencil. And my thing was, and I got this and I was like, oh, don't stack them. That compresses them and sticks them together. Store them standing up on their edge.
When you say a soft lead pencil, what would that be?
Like a number 2 or number 1
okay.
pencil. Yeah, you don't want to you don't want to have to press too hard because it might make a dent on the front. I use sticky notes a lot, and they tell you not to do that. A piece of paper in there with everything written on it is probably your best way to do it, because then you're not getting in trouble with it. You know, those old magnetic albums that you can't get them out of now.
Yeah.
Anybody run into those? Again, the archival shoebox is great. I use that a lot. It makes for easy sorting by year. I've got little dividers in there and then can help sort. These are for more modern day rather than your others. But again, a shoebox is good. Just make sure what kind it is. The the albums, make sure they're not the kind that have that magnetic and they'll stick and you can forever and take them out, except they won't come out now. Probably because I stacked them like you weren't supposed to. The archival CD, they say this one will last 300 years. Okay, how many believe that? How many have 3 1/4 floppies that they can't use anymore? So even though the CD may last through 300 years, probably will not have anything that you can read it on. So the thing to do when you're saving them is be sure you're saving them onto media that you keep updating. So if you have it on this archival CD, now you may want to move it to a flash drive. You know, make sure you keep up with the technology. I took those 26 pictures that I got from that man. We of course scanned them, made little thumbnails and put them on a document, identifying what I could. Most of them were not identified, but I was able to identify a lot of them by comparing pictures. And put that in a CD, and along with the photos, I had it nearly a year. I was not that good. I did keep them longer than I should have. But I mailed them back to the guy. But that was my thank you for him. I sent him the information as to who was in the photos, and he probably never looked at it. But I did what I could to preserve our history. I also got up to a family reunion and then realized, why didn't I make copies of it? So you want to share your photo finds. You want to share them. I went to Walmart, and for 29 cents a photo, which, by the way, they had just shut down the photography thing when I got there, the photo center. But if you cry really big tears and tell them you're from 3 hours away and, oh my gosh, I need this photo copied so I can have it for the family reunion tomorrow, the guy finally was like, oh lady, just go make your photos while I clean up over here and leave me alone. Of course, then I had trouble with the equipment and had to have help, but he did. And so I ended up with pictures that I could hand out at the reunion for a very small fee. I made lots of people happy that day, other than they don't like some of my research, what I've found.
Yeah.
I also, he was married to a descendant of Davy Crockett. No, he's not. He did have 2 wives, and it is possible that there was a cousin of Davy Crockett as the first wife. I have no clue who his first wife was. The second wife is Nancy Humphrey, and I found marriage license and all those kind of things. And so she's not a Crockett. And they didn't like me. They nearly threw me out of a reunion. But anyway, I put it on a website. I put things out there a lot of times, and I'm always waiting for somebody to come along and say, that's not right. That's so-and-so. Great. You tell me, you help me figure it out, because they love to correct you. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and let people tell you that you're wrong. You learn a lot that way. Another thing you want to do with that I'm going to recommend that you think about, I have this notebook. Oops, sorry. This was started when my granddaughter, as you can tell from that picture, she was 5 or 6. She's now turning 15 in November. So it's been a long time project. But this is her ancestor notebook. And I have taken those pictures of those ancestors, a story about each one, and I did them just as the direct line ancestors. And a little picture of maybe something they did. I could not get out of her father's side. They didn't want to share anything. They didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to share anything. So my daughter finally took the notebook out there to them, looking for a particular page in there, with blanks in it. Well, here's what I know about that person. I may have gone back too far. Anyway, it came back with sticky notes. Well, I'm not finding that page. You can come up and look. But it has sticky notes. And I got pictures. There's one with a sticky note right there. They didn't like it that I had. Well, why don't you have that? I said, because you won't share it. So it broke loose some information. One of the other tips I was told a long time ago, if you want to send out, you know how you send out family group sheets and ask them to fill in the family group sheet? And how many of them did you get back? Put the wife in there 10 years older than she is. It'll come back with information. What do you want to bet? Same thing. Send it out with blanks and it comes back with information. This is another notebook I have. How many of us, looks like some of us are getting older, we need to think about this. How many of us have treasures at our house that when we're gone, our children will go, what did Mama keep this for? Yep. Put it out there in that garage sale for 10 cents. So I have a notebook. This is my grandfather's clock that he bought for his wife on their wedding day. I have a picture of it. I have a picture of them, a little story that goes with it. We have a corn pone pan. You know what that is, don't you? That stick cornbread. My daddy was giving it away. And I said, no. That was my great-grandma Seal's corn pone pan. He said, well, then take it home because I don't want it here. So I did. Took a picture. And my fingers are dry. I have a picture of my great-grandmother, her corn pone pan. And then we made corn pone in it with the grandchildren. So I have 2 pages for that one because they had so much fun. And I took a recipe that was more traditional from that time period, and they didn't like it. It was dry. But my mother's doll, looking for this one, my daddy and his little cast iron penny bank from the 1920s. I have one granddaughter that loves that horse. She comes in and pets that horse and touches him. And so on there, I don't think it's on this one, on the real copy that I have, this is the one I can carry around. There is a thing that says this horse goes to Brenna. So that's what we all need. Go take pictures of your treasures, make you a notebook so that when they get there after you're gone, they can pull the treasures and then decide, still stick it in the trash or the garage sale. But at least you have a shot at them knowing what these were, where they came from, etc. And one more silly one. Let me make sure I've covered here. That was my corn pone. One more silly one, and then I'll close, wrap up. This is my Nana's memories, because we're all taking pictures now on our cell phones. And then what do you do with them? Leave them on your cell phone till it dies, and then you've lost 1,000 pictures. But I use some of mine and print them out and make. This is my Nana's memories book. It tells about one of my favorite stories in it is babysitting days. Now, this really doesn't have to do with preserving photos, other than your photographs are going to become antiques one of these days too. And so my granddaughter, one time they were living with us, and she came and brought me her stuffed animal, her dog, Brownie. And she said, "Nana, will you watch this dog while I'm gone to school today?" Sure, no problem. Throw him over there, we'll be all right. But I thought after she left, I can't just throw that dog over there and not do something. So, again, one of your first mistakes. I took Brownie, and she told me as she went out that he liked noodles for lunch. So, I opened a package of ramen noodles, and he had noodles for lunch. Oh, there's these noodles. He tried to get into the candy bag. He helped me with the computer, and if you could see when you're up here, that's the back of his head in front of my computer. And then I put him down for a nap with a blanket over him. Made her a page, put her picture and a date on it. When she came home, I presented her with that, with her dog, and said, "See, he was really good today, and there you go." Yeah, right. Next day, whoops, sorry. Next day, I had another animal to babysit. That was so much fun that she brought another one in. The next day, her sister brought one. Let's see. We have a skip here. Then my other granddaughter that doesn't live with me said, "But Nana, you need to babysit mine." And so she brought it in one Sunday, and I kept it for a week. And then the youngest one, babysitting days nearly drove me nuts because I was running out of things to do. I was taking them and putting them under an umbrella out in the front yard and said they played in the rain. But I have several pages in here. But you know what fun they have coming back and looking at these? I have, babysitting days continued for a while. I have how my husband and I met, and a little thing about that. There was a meteor shower, one of the first dates we had. I really thought the sky was falling, and this had to mean something. So, anyway, the meteor shower was one of our first things that made me think he was big. I have my daddy's little book that he took and wrote notes when he was on the boat going to serve in World War II, going to Hawaii. I also took him to a cemetery, and they think, "You're going to take us where?" Because in the summer, I used to have all 5 of them. I have 5 little girls. No boys. So we had lots of fun. But I took them to a cemetery, and we did a scavenger hunt. The cemetery had it's a big cemetery, and they had a printed scavenger hunt list. So take your pictures. Use them to make memories. I gave the girls any copies they wanted. I make their birthday cards, their sheet. I have one granddaughter that collects them into a notebook. Share your photos. They're not just mine. So, today we learned about finding old photographs, which is not hard to do, the types of photographs, how dating them, identifying the people in the photographs, and how to preserve and share. Remember, your current photographs will become the mysteries in the hands of your descendants if you don't identify them. And there is my contact information and the URL to my website. And you'll find on there this PowerPoint, the resource list of all the different places I have used for photographs, the list of books that are up here. You're also welcome to take pictures of the books. I found a lot of people will do that so they can find them. And are there any questions? Yes?
I have two actually. At what resolution do you scan your photos?
Usually the 300 DPI, unless it's like the picture of this house, and then I go as high as I can find to get it. But I carry it, and I'm going to have to start bringing that Flip Pal. How many of you have Flip Pal? They're a wonderful, wonderful thing to take when you're going on a genealogy trip. And you can lay that photo in there and scan it. It's battery operated. Or you can lay it and take pictures and stitch them back together. And the stitching software that comes with that thing is awesome.
What's it called?
Flip Pal.
Where do you find it? I think they've got.
FlipPal.com, or you can find them on Amazon.
There's several of them.
Different societies. If you go to a conference, there are a lot of them have those there. But it's small. I will recommend buy you good rechargeable batteries, 2 sets of batteries. It's an expensive outlay, but Dollar General batteries, if you go in and buy them fresh, they will not power it up. So I'll save you that trip. But I bought rechargeable that way while we're scanning things. We were in the Camp Mabry, the archives there, and they have the little World War II cards. We were scanning those as fast as she could pull them. I was scanning them. It takes a 1-minute scan. I mean, it's zip, zip, and it's done. And it'll take 5x7 photos, or as I said, you can take the top off and flip it over and take books in the courthouse, all kinds of things, and then the software will stitch it back together for you. So FlipPal is a really good tool to use. Anything else? Mm-hmm.
The archival shoeboxes, do you order them like from Metal Edge or Hollister, or do you get them local?
I usually run it. No, of course I live in Paris. Nothing's local there. Walmart. If it's not in Walmart, you can't find it. I search online for archival storage, and then
You can get a lot of stuff on Amazon.
yeah, I started to say Amazon has them, and I think like the FlipPal. I think FlipPal's same price on Amazon as it is on, and I think it's FlipPal.com. But yeah, I just do a search. The same thing for the sleeves when you're doing the archival sleeves. Actually, I get the archival sleeves off of eBay and buy them by the case when I get them. And they'll just say acid-free usually is what you're going to search for. And I said, you're welcome to come up and look at things here. Anything else? Any other questions? I hope I didn't go over. I didn't have anybody that was over here waving to tell me. I usually have somebody designated stand up when it's time to hush, and I forgot to do that. So I hope you enjoyed it and are ready to go home and identify and date your photos. My stuff there, huh? Thank you.
Can we leave that off to go tomorrow?
I had my hot dog laid out.
All right, if y'all want to come up and take a look at the
Anything up
books
here?
and the photos. Questions?
This has been a presentation of the Dallas Genealogical Society. If you're already a member, thank you. Your membership dues are supporting this and other society activities. If you're not yet a member, I hope you consider joining. You can become a member for as little as $35 a year, and you can join by going to our website, dallasgenealogy.org, and clicking on the membership tab.